Yeah, I think first and foremost, and it may sound odd, I don't know, but have that strategy. Clearly understand amongst yourself and your team in the project, what is our strategy, i.e., is it about a velocity absorption? Are you doing this for cash flow? Or is it about ultimately valuation? Because those become very, very different things. That's, for instance, Chronicle, our new project in Vancouver, we're trying to reach the highest dollar per square foot that we can. So we're giving ourselves a long runway. We're giving a year to do 128 units because we want to really juice up that dollar per square foot to the point that if we lease this up in 3 months, we have failed. We've left money on the table because we've just priced ourselves too low. So, really consider and be firm in your conviction of what, circumstances change that allow for certain things, but walk into it with a plan and a strategy of what it is you're trying to achieve and why you're trying to achieve it. And then as through the course of it, I guess the question really be how you move from lease-up to stability. Lease-up is going to be more of an investment. That what we do is, there is a launch event and spending the money like what I was showing before where we had media. There was an expenditure that's involved with it. You don't necessarily have to do that, but really recognizing to get your name out there and to start it off being, out-of-home advertising, your ILSs, your print advertising, if you choose to do that, it will be heavier up front because it does take some time to build that velocity before you go from launch to tempo. And then as you are leasing up, I think for me at least, it's just really a measure of being efficient in the spend and cost containment. You don't have to spend as much when your inventory is dwindling, and you're going to be left with probably the highest priced units in your dogs. But I think it's just a matter of know what you're going to spend, but it's not a straight line of 12 months and divide those costs. It's going to be heavy up at the beginning and slope downwards as you get to stability to do that. And yeah, I think that this is typically, your mileage may vary, but, about a year to get things up. But I think being mindful, and I've said it once, I'll say it again, I can't stress enough of what is your plan prior to this thing starting. Because if you are going to, if you're building the plane in flight, as I like to say, that is just fraught with error and something's going to go and it may not be good. So just really decide, and have a plan and stick to that plan unless events and circumstances change.
Appreciate that insight, and one thing to kind of keep in mind too, it may feel like you could take your kind of foot off the gas pedal a little bit, and I'll jump to Ryan on this, but generally speaking, turnover is quite high in year 2 if you were to kind of fall within the average of leasing up in 12 months. Why is that? And how can that be mitigated, do you think?
That's actually, can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay. It's actually a really good question. I would just say that the lifting of rent controls on new product, that's a very novel concept. It's even more so a novel concept in the eyes of the consumer and in the eyes of the renter, right? So they can sign a lease at a brand new property in downtown Toronto thinking that your property is subject to rent controls when it's not. And so you can imagine when you hit a renter with a 7% increase and they're expecting something that's sub 2%, that's problematic. And it can lead to turnover, it can lead to notices. And so really it's about managing and massaging the messaging. And it's all about the team. It's about the team component, and we keep going back to that. That's really, really important. And so what I also find interesting is you see a lot of operators taking their key heavy hitters on the leasing side at stabilization to the next lease up. It's not necessarily a bad strategy, but what I would encourage is that some of your heavy hitters are on the ground at stabilize because they need to get you those above market increases year over year.
Yeah.
Add to that in terms of if your development is in a major center, like if it's downtown Toronto, expect a 30 to 40% turnover. Doesn't matter, don't tell me how well your operations are or everything, it's not your fault. It's people's lives change and they're gonna move out, A. B, if you are offering concessions, and as many of us, all of us have during the pandemic, and if you offered 1 month or 2 months, I saw 3 months, we never did that, but at the end of that 1 year, that resident's net effective rent is gonna spike. And they need to kind of figure out, and that's where a lot of the turnover happens, where they just kind of, face facts and say, I can't afford this anymore. So build that into your thinking, and I guess I'll give another tip of what we do. If you are giving 1 month or 2 months free, don't blend that across the course of that 1 year. Place it up front so that in the first couple of months they're rent free, but then by month 2 or month 3, they're not paying net effective. They're paying market for what that is. So it's easier for them. Now they have 10 or 11 months to get used to what that rent is. So at the end of the term, there is really no net effective anymore. There is no spike because presumably they've had 10 or 11 months to get used to paying that rent. But I think that's the number one thing for us, especially with new developments of why are you moving out? When it breaks my heart, oh, I love it here, it's great, everything else, why are you moving out? I can't afford it. But turnover is a fact of life and something to really consider and build into your P&Ls, especially when you're doing new lease-ups in metropolitan area.
That's an interesting perspective because a lot of owner-operators, that's exactly what they do. They take that concession and divide it, you know, and then it's a big hit when they move out. So loading it up front kind of does make sense. I don't know how the accounting works out, but yeah, it's a good idea.
And I can imagine that your well-trained SVN leasing agents likely aren't going to be pointing out the non-rent control scenario and the potential of 7 or 10% increases at the time of getting those deals closed. So turnover, it can be a good thing, but as long as you see it coming and you expect it and you plan and you strategize your marketing and leasing efforts around it and it doesn't just kind of hit you and side rail you out of nowhere. So.